So this may be the most random, weird, strange, crazy, ridiculous, and head-scratching articles, gaming articles, I should say, that I've ever read. I woke up like in the middle of the night, 4 a.m. or something. I was scrolling through Twitter. I seen the title. I couldn't believe what the title was. So I opened it. I read through it. It's a pretty lengthy article at that, longer than your average gaming article, I think. And then when you get through it, again, I was left scratching my head and it was the middle of the night. I almost didn't think it was real. I thought, hey, maybe I'm just dreaming this or something. And so by the time I got up in the morning, I realized, well, hey, it's very real. It is very real. And I wanted to discuss it because I think it's just kind of stretching at this point. And like I said, it's a slow news day, so let's just, might as well make a video on something, right? No, but in all honesty, I want to preface this really quick before we jump into this by saying that, this is getting maybe a little philosophical, but it needs to be said to kind of jump into this, is that we live in such a post-modernistic world and a relativistic world that it almost feels like, even just discussing how silly and ridiculous I think this article is, people are going to just be up in arms. They're going to get angry and saying like, who are you to say anything? It's like, you can't say anything anymore. So it's like, look, at the end of the day, if you've known me for long enough, I am typically a person who tries to be super friendly with people. I really do strive to try to, not necessarily, mock people or laugh at people, and try to respect certain things. But there's also a certain point, and there is a certain line, and that needs to be said, especially in today's age, that sometimes things are just silly. They are just ridiculous. And in other, instances, just flat out wrong. And in this case, it's very silly, and it's just really grasping. And I think it's just nuts. I'm going to read you the title, then we're going to go in and I'll show you a few of these quotes. Like I said, it's a very long article, so I'm going to try to skim through, portions of it for sake of time. But let me first read you the title. They say, wholesome games are awkwardly comfortable depicting violence against animals. Now, that title in and of itself is a little strange, and you may be wondering, hey, why do you have I'm probably gonna put Animal Crossing footage in the background, and you're probably wondering also, why am I doing that on my non-Nintendo channel? Because it's not really a Nintendo related video, but the article focuses heavily on Animal Crossing, and so that's why we're going to be talking mostly about Animal Crossing, even though typically Nintendo related stuff goes on my Nintendo channel. Does that make sense? I hope that does. Okay, so let's jump into this. They basically go on to say and talk about how the AAA space is dominated mostly and primarily by things like AAA games that are first-person shooters, right? Like futuristic wars and 1960s Vietnam kind of settings and alien invasions and so on and so forth. And they said that so-called wholesome or non-violent games have therefore drawn in a huge fan bases as a result, because not everybody's into those, AAA first-person shooters and things like that. So games like Animal Crossing, Harvest Moon, et cetera, I guess Stardew Valley, things like that have drawn in a lot of attention, right? So that's basically kind of the intro of what they're going into. And then they go on to talk about that, these games that are, kind of wholesome and supposed to be non-violent and whatnot are not really the case. So I'll quote you 2 paragraphs in a row that I think really kind of set the theme for this article. So let's talk about it. Let's read it. So they say, perhaps the poster child for the wholesome games genre, Animal Crossing, now you understand why we're focusing on that, is both inspired by predecessors like Harvest Moon and a direct inspiration for games that have followed it, such as Disney Dreamlight Valley. They didn't mention Stardew Valley, by the way, but I guess you could throw that in as well. Its gameplay loop consists of breezy activities such as decorating your house, designing clothes, and gardening. It's certainly one of the most successful games of its kind in the industry's history, and they said that they would never argue its success, but here's where things take a turn. They said, I do take issue with its label as a wholesome or non-violent game. In Animal Crossing, one of the major daily activities is fishing. You see where this is going? Yeah, it's getting weird already. Both here and in many other examples within the genre, it's the fishing mechanic that most reliably reveals the dissonance between what a game's vibe is intended to be and what it actually depicts. The next paragraph is where I just could not believe this article was real. Personally, I get there's people that are on this side of things, and I do, before we read the second part, okay? Before we read the second part, I want to say that I understand that there's a such thing as actual animal abuse, you know, that goes on in the world in terms of things like, you know, those kind of videos you see that are just really nasty videos of people throwing their animals, their pets, you know, or kicking them. It's really messed up. Like, obviously that, I think anybody would agree that is messed up and wrong. But there's also a line, right? I mean, you got to understand too, the humans are not animals, okay? I mean, I know a lot of people think we're just animals and we're just worthless, you know, bacteria or something, but we're not. We're human beings with a soul, and that's what differentiates us from animals. Animals obviously still feel pain, things like that. I understand that, but you know, animals are they're soulless, right? And I'm not saying, again, this is, like I said, everyone would disagree and be against people, you know, actually abusing animals, but in terms of things like, you know, hunting and fishing, and I get that's not everybody's forte, it's not their, you know, their vibe, whatever you want to call it, they're not into it. That's in and of itself, I don't think you can start calling that animal abuse, right? Or animal violence, you know what I mean? Like fishing and hunting, things like that. And I get some people don't like to eat meat, and that's fine. If you don't want to consume meat, whatever, man, it's your choice what you want to eat, right? Like I like carrots. Some people don't like carrots. I like eating meat. I love fish. Some people don't like fish. That's fine. I'm not going to like say, well, whatever, man. You know, I mean, if you don't want to eat, you know, certain foods, or you want to eat certain foods, it's like, to me, that's just kind of like a whatever, you know, category, right? But this is just getting weird where this goes. So I'm going to read you this next paragraph. It says, and I quote, "Fish don't enjoy being tricked into biting a hook. When it happens to them, it doesn't just take away their autonomy, it inflicts pain on them. For a long time, people argued whether or not fish even felt pain, since they don't seem to express it in the anthropocentric way humans often prefer other species communicate with. Recent studies confirm, however, the fish feel pain." So the gripe here with Animal Crossing, as you can see, and there's more to this article, but so far you can see that the gripe is that fish don't like being tricked into biting a hook. They don't like being deceived, okay? You should not deceive a fish into biting a hook with a little worm on it just so you can, you know, pull it in, reel it in, and just be, you know, do whatever you want with it, I guess, you know, whether it's eating it or whatever you do. Okay. I don't even think that from the language, I don't think the gripe is just against sport fishing. I think they just seem not to like fishing in general. So I don't know. Anyways, I don't know. I'm scratching my head because it's so strange to me. Like, I get, like I said, there's people that don't necessarily like these things, but you're mad almost. I don't know, maybe mad's the wrong word, but you're maybe upset at a very cartoony game like Animal Crossing because it's not truly wholesome and non-violent because you're fishing in it. I mean, it's not like you're committing some kind of like massacre to the fish, like you're taking it out of the water and like you're kicking it around like a soccer ball and you're beating it and you're like stabbing it like 1,000 times. Like, that's what almost the way it sounds like based on the language of this article. And they go on to say other things, right? They said you might think, so what? These are video games fish. They're not real. And they said, I agree. These are obviously not real fish. But then they go on to say that the kind of, you know, I guess issue here is that hold on here. Where is it here? Depicting casual violence such as sport fishing in a game that is universally praised as non-violent and wholesome. It seems to be the issue, right? That's what matters, is how we are often comfortable with that, is what they're saying. And it's like, I mean, dude, it is a non-violent, wholesome game. You're fishing. And do you know what you do with the fish in Animal Crossing? I just want to say this. I don't think typically, I guess you can eat it, right? I don't remember. I think you can eat the fish. But either way, the majority of the time, what you do with the fish, I don't even know actually if you can eat the fish. I can't remember. I played a lot of Animal Crossing, like 100 hours of New Horizon, but I, for some reason, can't remember that. You guys can let me know in the comments. Anyways, the point is, the main thing you do with the fish is you bring them to the museum and put them on display. You're not even torturing them. You honestly, if you were to do that in real life, you'd be probably catching them with a net anyways. But for the sake of a video game, it's more complex to start, you know, like, oh, you're gonna, like, if you used a net, you would have to go out to sea, right? Whereas, you know, a fishing rod is just, it's just a gameplay mechanic to bring the fish in, right? Like you cast a line out from the shore, easy. But if you had to use a net to catch the fish, then at that point you have to move out to sea. You can't just do it from the beach, and that just creates gameplay mechanics issues. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. So of course they're just going to use a fishing rod, even though from a typical standpoint, if you're going to catch fish to put on display, you don't use a fishing rod, right? You go use a net. Anyone who has pet fish knows this, for example, right? If you have like an aquarium or something of any sort, they weren't reeled in with a fish hook, they were reeled in with a net. So in that case, you know, again, it's just kind of like an ease of gameplay mechanic sort of thing, right? You're putting them on display. The fish are happy in an aquarium. They're thriving in these aquariums in the museum. It's Animal Crossing, for crying out loud. It's non-violent. It is wholesome. It's not wholesome and not non-violent because you're using a fishing rod to bring in some fish that you then throw into a museum for display, who are, again, the fish are alive. It's not the kind of museum where they're like, you know, you're fossilizing them or something, right? Or whatever that would be called, you know, preserving them, putting them like in a plaque or something. They're in an aquarium swimming around happy. They're just not in the ocean no more. That's it. Anyways, it goes on to say, I don't want to take too long, but they go on to say more stuff like that. And that, imagine Animal Crossing involves a game where you hook, not fish, with worm bait, plucking them from their waters, but instead you're required to catch cats. They're equating this with cats. We don't go hunting cats. Anyways, they said you catch cats with hooks and all by coercing them into a trap like fish. I mean, can you imagine a game earning a spotlight in next year's Wholesome Direct? That's what they said. I'm not making that up. That's what they said. They said the obvious answer is no. But with fish, it seems to be okay, is basically what they're saying. It's like, I don't see the equivalence there at all, personally. I think that's again, I think you're really stretching. This whole article feels like a stretch and a half, and it's very strange to me. It's just very strange to me. Anyways, it goes on and on and on to say, you know, more stuff like that. Just kind of going more into, you know, expressing this whole kind of narrative, I guess, if you will, this whole kind of view and idea. Like I said, it is a it is a pretty lengthy article. I'm scrolling through it. It's like probably, I don't know, 15 paragraphs. So just kind of eyeballing it and whatnot. I'm not sure. But again, it's just a lot of the same thing. And it's just like, man, you're griping with Animal Crossing because you think that, you know, it doesn't deserve its label as wholesome and non-violent because you're fishing. And I think it's just ridiculous. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because it was a slow news day, like I said, and because it's just something that I thought, like, listen, man, like, you know, how far are we going to take this at this point? You know what I mean? Like, I get there's people that don't like fishing. That's fine. You don't want to fish. You don't know. I get it. And it's not like you have to fish in Animal Crossing anyways. It's not necessarily a necessity either. You know, it's just one activity you can do. And again, you know, on the flip side, it's not really depicting anything, you know, violent per se either. You know, I just think this is, like I said, it's just a stretch. It's just a little ridiculous. And I get, at the end of the day, everybody, like I said, everybody can think what they want and have the opinion that they want. Of course, this person as well. But how far are we going to take it, man? You know, and how far are we going to be like, dude, like, really? Like, I mean, it just feels like people are just griping at everything at some point, you know? If this was something like something else, I would get it. But like fishing and Animal Crossing, I don't know, man. I'm left personally scratching my head. Maybe you're someone who agrees with this article. Maybe you think I'm the biggest, you know, and meanest, you know, idiot for saying, well, you know, these things that I've kind of said and thinking that it's ridiculous. But again, you know, it's I don't know. It just seems like a little bit of a stretch. Okay, so all that to say, I'll leave it at this. I had a buddy on Twitter that replied to my tweet because I did tweet about it, and I was expressing how I thought it was just a little bit crazy and ridiculous, saying that they would hate to see their opinion on Pokemon. They actually mentioned Pokemon in passing near the end of the article. They were talking about some game. I don't really know. I'm not really familiar with the game, but the game was called like Ooblets or Oblets. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, where apparently they swap out fishing for seed dangling, where the mechanics remain the same, but players instead retrieve crafting objects such as wood planks. So I guess instead of fishing for fish, you're fishing for objects. I don't know. I mean, some could argue that a tree, you know, it has life to it too, right? I mean, a tree is alive. I guess a wooden plank isn't alive. It's dead at that point. But does that mean? Anyways, forget it. Anyways, and they go on to say that rather than make the titular creatures fight each other like Pokemon, Ooblets or Oblets, however you pronounce it, perform elaborate dance battles. And they're going to just talk about this game, Ooblets or Oblets. So they mentioned Pokemon, but that does raise the question that my buddy mentioned on Twitter, though. What do they think about Pokemon? You know, where you're catching creatures and they're fighting each other and they're battling each other and there's all this, you know, craziness. I mean, are they also against Pokemon then? I would genuinely be curious. That's actually a genuine question because, again, you know, they mentioned, like I said, Pokemon in passing, but what would they actually think of it? Would they be against a game like that too? I don't know. I mean, look, at the end of the day, like I said, everybody can have their own opinion, but I think that, again, you know, at some point people are just stretching. At some point people are, you know, just, I mean, there's a line that feels like it's just crossing into ridiculousness. And look, that's my opinion. So I just wanted to talk about that because, again, to me, it's like, how far are we going to go, man? You know, things just keep getting like further and further, people complaining about more and more and more. And it's like, it's Animal Crossing. It's a cartoony game. It's still wholesome. It is still non-violent. You know, it doesn't negate that because there's fishing in it. But like I said, if someone wants to think that way, it's on them. But I think, you know, when you're pushing those ideas, at some point it's kind of like, dude, it's getting a little bit crazy. It's getting a little ridiculous. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Wanted to talk about something today, and I don't know, that article just kind of threw me off. So wanted to discuss it. Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you didn't like it, dislike it. Subscribe for more if you want to stick around for more. And I'll see you guys soon in another one. Tell them, my friends, game on. Thanks for watching.